Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this very special For Sales virtual event. Taskmaster, the new series, has finally come to Channel 4, and it's probably the perfect antidote. We want a bit of silliness in this day and age. So in a few moments' time, I'm going to be joined by Channel 4's Head of Live Events and Commissioning Editor, Tom Beck, and creator and star of the show, Alex Horn, tell us all about it and what we can expect from Taskmaster on Channel 4. But before we do that, we're going to play you the recent TV promo, how we've introduced Taskmaster to Channel 4 viewers.
Several years ago, I received a letter. Dear Sirs, we at Channel 4 regret to inform you that your show Taskmaster is not fit for TV. I see. So no one wants to watch the most elite comedic minds doing battle in a series of incredibly important tasks, such as... Wrong room. Such as painting the best picture of a horse whilst riding a horse, collecting the most tears in an egg cup, or beautifully destroying a cake. Exactly. So those cowards at Channel 4 have come crawling back.
We're very excited. Brand new Taskmaster, now on Channel 4.
Finally.
Yes, finally. So as promised, I'd like to introduce you to our live events and commissioning editor, Tom Beck, and creator and star of the show, Alex Horn. Good morning.
Morning.
Thanks so much for joining us. It's lovely to start a Wednesday and a midweek with a little bit of silliness and a lot of excitement about the new show. So lovely to see your faces today. That is such strong knitwear from Alex. I think it's knitwear, could be a sweatshirt, but either way, amazing work. So
I can confirm it's knitted.
Oh, wonderful, good. Strong autumnal knitwear. So for those people who aren't familiar with Taskmaster, Alex, why don't you take us back to the very beginning of where the idea for Taskmaster came from concept to becoming a BAFTA award-winning television show. Talk us through it.
Sure, thank you. Well, I'm not sure if it's typical of TV programs or not, but one thing I think has been in our favour is that it was never meant to be a TV program. It was an idea that happened when my wife gave birth for the first time, and I was stuck at home, unable to go to the Edinburgh Fringe. So I made a plan that next year I would do a tournament called Taskmaster, and I emailed 20 comedians who I knew and said, right, I'm going to set you a task every month, and up in Edinburgh next year, I'll do a show and tell everyone what happened. And that was the idea. I only had one task up my sleeve, which was deposit some money in my bank account. Most amount of money wins.
Can I do that?
That was the very first task, and that set the tone really, because Mark Watson put 200 quid in. No one else put over a fiver, and straight away I saw that, you know, that's funny. It's funny to reveal a bit of Mark's personality. And as soon as I announced that in a live show, we were off and running. So it was meant to be a one-off Edinburgh event, and it went really well. It was a late night, sort of tiny room, talk of the town for one day. And so we did it again the following year. And that time, someone from Avalon, the production company, said, look, this would work on telly, so let's give it a go. So it was then that we started making a pitch. We reduced it to 5 comedians, and we took it round to Channel 4, who were very supportive and gave us some development time, but didn't quite think it was right. And they knew that 6 years is what it would really need to become what it is. So yeah, it was an accident that has taken over my life.
Oh, it's a brilliant accident. I'm delighted you had that accident. Tom, Alex just alluded to the fact that we did have early conversations about bringing the show to the channel, but didn't go through with it. Is that true? Why did we reject it? Did we reject it, or was it more we didn't feel it was quite right at the moment? And why is now the perfect time to bring it to the channel?
It is true. It is true. I mean, I'm not sure whether to my shame or credit, I was the commissioner that that Alex and the gang came and pitched it to. It's actually, I think, my very first funded development, because I'd not long been at the channel, and I thought, this is brilliant. People bring me these amazing ideas, and I get to put them on telly. It's one of those, you know, it's a strange and difficult process getting something from pitch onto TV, and I was very keen to do it, but it didn't quite fit, I think, with what the sort of bigger vision for the channel was, I suppose. I mean, I'm being very diplomatic here. I wanted to do it, other people didn't quite manage it, so I watched it with envy from afar, as of course everyone in the entertainment department did, as it appeared on Dave, and just was brilliant from the beginning and did better and better and better. And then you know, we'd obviously always love to have a program like that on. And when the chance came up to have a conversation about bringing it to Channel 4, we sort of jumped at the chance. And you know, it's I'm very pleased to say gone incredibly well. The series is incredibly good. I think you're going to really enjoy it. So we're really pleased, really
Amazing.
pleased.
Will we see any changes from what we've seen previously with Taskmaster being on Dave? Will there be any Channel 4 spins on it, or are we keeping it very authentic and letting it just be the wonderfully bonkers beast that it is?
Well, I mean, I like the phrase "wonderfully bonkers beast." That's how I describe Greg. My friend. No, it's been a really nice process. Tom has, I think it helps that you were there at the beginning, Tom, because you know you guys have effectively bought the show that you wanted. So you didn't then say we're going to change it massively. You know, the show exists, and it does change every series anyway because the cast changes, every single task changes. We always have a different theme to it. This year it's a sort of cowboy theme, and we have one different filming location every year. So it changes enough for us not to need to meddle with the format. And so the work that Tom and Phil have done it from the Channel 4 side has just been helping us and, you know, working together rather than asking for anything to be different. So without sounding too sycophantic, it's been very harmonious. And I think fans of the show will get the show that they've enjoyed rather than suddenly finding a different show. And we haven't had to change the persona despite Greg looking for a different assistant.
So you alluded there to how you have different themes each season. So looking back over past seasons, I imagine it's virtually impossible to find even a handful of highlights. There must be thousands. I mean, I've personally got tons that just exist from Rob Beckett's time on the show and Ramesh's Tree Wizard. But what are the kind of ones that stand out for you over all the seasons that you've done? What are the 2 or 3 either comedians or tasks that kind of really stick in your mind as being particularly brilliant?
So I'm quite an anal character in the show, and that is a very accurate reflection of my personality. So I tend to like the people who win the show. I like seeing the points add up. So I would highlight a couple of past winners. Bob Mortimer, just having Bob in the show was a dream come true. From the very beginning, actually, when we had Frank Skinner in series 1, I couldn't believe it. But Bob Mortimer, when he said, "Yeah, I'll do it," just spending time with him was so great. And one of the tasks was to give Alex a special cuddle. And I'm always in the room with them, and I'm so excited when they open the envelope. They have no idea what's coming, and that particular one, you know, you can see them opening it going, "Oh God!" But Bob immediately went, "Right, well, I've got my car outside. I've always wanted to get in the boot with another person." So he
I remember this.
He popped open the boot. We crawled in, and then there was a button inside which made it shut. And it's pitch black, just me and Bob Mortimer, and a banana and a can of deodorant. That's all he had in there. And we were in there for about 15 minutes, and it was intimate and funny. It was everything you'd want from an afternoon in Chiswick. And then Lisa Tarbuck, I think she's someone who really surprised me, because quite often people, sometimes I can predict what they're going to do. Not always, but someone like Tim Key, who I know inside out, I knew often which direction he'd go in. But Lisa surprised me every single time. She's got an amazing comic brain, and that's why I like casting really different people. So she's not a stand-up, but she fits in the show perfectly. And the task for her that I will always remember, which is horrific, was to show Greg how much you love him. That was it. It was quite a broad task. So we got all these varied responses, and she straight away said, "Right, get me the biggest cake you can find, take off your trousers and your underwear, and sit on the cake in the shed." And that feeling represented her feelings towards Greg. And as soon as I hear those sorts of instructions, I go through emotions of thinking, "Oh, my mother-in-law's going to watch this," but also this would probably be quite good TV. So
it's amazing TV, and I guess it's quite difficult to keep coming up with all these tasks when the more bonkers you get, the harder it is to kind of keep going down that road. Like, how far do I keep pushing it? And I suppose to your point about contestants, you never really know who's going to work and who's not. So is it quite, I guess, satisfying that when you have bring these contestants on the show and they go on to talk about Taskmaster in their, like Johnny Vegas was talking about this morning on the radio, or some of the stand-ups go on to talk about in their show? It must be quite satisfying. You've kind of left this comedy legacy of really even impressing the funny people of the world. They still have this really unique experience with you. Was that ever an aim to kind of have this legacy feel to it? Is it just sort of a happy accident?
Oh, again, none of this is planned, Lucy. But it is, like you say, it's so nice to feel like it's a little comedy school that you graduate from. And because it's not just turn up, film it, and go home, it takes maybe 7 or 8 months of the person's life from start to finish. We film it around people's diaries. So you do, you go through people having kids and having various life events, and we get to know them really, really well. And there's been 50 now, obviously this is series 10. So I feel privileged to have got to know those people really quite well. And you're right, people do talk about it afterwards. I remember Sarah Pascoe saying it felt like she was being homeschooled by me for a few months. And now that we've gone through homeschooling, I can only apologise to Sarah, not a proper teacher. So yes, it's great to feel like you're a part of the comedy world in a positive way.
And so when you bring these, sorry Tom, go on.
Sorry, I was just going to. It is. I mean, yeah, I've worked across these sorts of shows for almost 20 years now, and it is unlike anything else I've ever had either work made or looked after. In that everyone who has, I can only speak for the Channel 4 people, obviously, but all of the people who've done the show are so unbelievably warm about it. And Alex, Alex and Greg work them really hard, creatively, and it's unbelievably exposing a lot of the time. And then the studio records are really long because we do 2 shows a day in bunched up in a 5-day. And they just want to talk about it afterwards and talk about how much fun they've had. And almost all of them say, when you ask them about how they came to be on the show, almost everyone says, well, my mate, Sarah Pascoe did it, and she said it was brilliant and it would be the best thing I've ever done. And that's, I think, it's a lovely thing to look after. It's a lovely thing to watch. And I think it's a huge tribute to Alex and Greg and the team who make it, who are also exceptional. I think it's a brilliant group of people. From a commissioner's point of view, it's a dream, because I just, they tell me what they're doing and I say, brilliant, can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a lovely platform as well for emerging comedians to kind of be able to really show what they can do. And you've had tons on the show, probably when they've been on the cusp of becoming what we now know as sort of regular TV faces, but, kind of giving a platform to absolute nut jobs like James Acaster, who I adore because he's just on a different level to the rest of us. Do you find that now more comedians are coming to you, the rising ones, and asking to get on the show because they appreciate what it can do for them, but also they get to spend time with comedians at the other end of the career that's really well established, whether it be you guys or Greg or whoever? Do you find that you kind of, rather than have to go looking, people actually come knocking on your door? Yeah,
I think it's a really important bit of the show that we do try to have someone or a couple of people that people haven't heard of. So you've got Johnny Vegas, but you might not have heard of Marwan Rizwan, although he is rising incredibly quickly. But yeah, all the things you said are right. You get to be in a studio show with them, but you're not competing against them in terms of talking, because everyone has their moment. It's not a bear pit. People don't talk across each other. So yeah, it's a really good grounding for that. And by the end of 10 episodes, you've really won over a whole load of people. It's a really good platform to be exposed to. And I think we've caught people at the crest. I don't think we can take credit for Ramesh Ranganathan's dominance of telly, but we did get him right at the start. And that's happened a few times. I mean, even Josh Widdicombe, when he started our show, he didn't have a sitcom called Josh. And yeah, we've done well each time. And I think Marwan in this series, and there's someone in the next series who is going to be a standout person, who is probably the least known person in it. It's a surprise still, so I won't give anything away. But we do really focus on that side of the casting. Yeah.
So speaking of Marwan, actually, we've got a clip we can share with you that features, I guess, Marwan and also Daisy May Cooper, who's kind of, again, she's very much out there now, but still, I guess, kind of on the rising side from a mainstream perspective. They're in the new series, Teen Channel 4 series. So we've got a brilliant clip to show everyone now featuring those two.
Move on. Would you like to see Daisy May Cooper's attempt?
Would I?
You've got to try to work out how she did this.
Taskmaster is probably best known for its large cow that was there. Can you find it? Because it's vanished.
Is it not around the corner? No.
No. Where is it? It's gone. It's vanished.
What do you think her method was?
I don't know, but I don't know.
You're a bit bored by it.
The way you made it disappear is going to have to be impressive. It's a lacklustre presentation.
Well, is it lacklustre when you see this?
Okay.
There we go. Keep going.
Really?
Really in there. That's good. That looks really good from here.
Vanished.
I don't understand. understand why you're sort of sneering at me like that.
You're supposed to make something completely vanish.
Which I did. A large object.
It's implied that you have to do that in a clever way, and you've just rammed a cow into a hedge. Do you think that's how Siegfried and Roy dominated Vegas for all those years? I've got this white tiger. What should I do? Just stick it in the fucking hedge. Stick it in the hedge. Yeah. Come on, who's next? I've got to get that taste out of my mouth.
The final person to see is Marwan. Here we go.
Come on, Marwan.
Behold, a large animal. Now you see it. Now you still see it, but maybe you're looking at the wrong animal. Where'd the cow go?
Are you watching?
I understand what we were supposed to do now. Yeah.
How did he push it into the hedge in that short amount of time?
You'd already beaten Daisy by putting the duck behind you.
Move on.
Oh, I love that. I mean, I think Greg is just the perfect withering, despairing host and quite a good foil for you. So was he always your main choice as to be the taskmaster? I mean, he's one of my favourite funny humans ever, I think, but he just does it so well. Was he always who you wanted to do this with?
Absolutely. We're so lucky because, like you say, he's just managed to turn Daisy's terrible attempt into a really funny bit, but she's laughing, she's not cross with him. He's so winning whilst being strict. It's a really unusual combination, and I think the teaching background's helped. But yeah, he was the only person I ever thought could do it, and still is, I think, in my head. I can't think of anyone who would do it anywhere near as well as him. And he also makes it look very easy. He's doing a lot of work there because he's hosting the show, doing all the hard work of actually welcoming the audience in and explaining things. But also, yeah, he makes me laugh just watching that back. He's such a funny face. So yeah, yes is the answer.
I quite enjoyed the time when he sort of took James Acaster off in a kind of headmasterly way for a chat when he was given some back chat, which I enjoy. So, I mean, hiding cows in bushes looks to me like your typical BAFTA award-winning show. How did it feel to receive your BAFTA and to be given it by a literal pair of Muppets in the form of Kermit and Miss Piggy? Was it everything you dreamed it would be?
I don't think I'd ever really dreamed of awards. You don't really as a stand-up. You just sort of hope to make people laugh, and that's you without sounding too cheesy. You do get rewarded every night just by making people laugh. But we had managed to be nominated for it a couple of times, so it was really lovely. And if I'm completely honest, not going to the ceremony and doing it over Zoom like this was brilliant because I got to sit with my wife and my kids, and they shared the moment. And the team who make the show were all on a Zoom as well. And normally it's sort of a bit elitist. Only the execs and the talent, which is the worst phrase in the world, get to go to the posh bits. Whereas this time we're all on it together, and we had a brilliant time sharing it from our homes. And actually UKTV were on the Zoom, and it was a really nice way to end our working relationship on this project with them. So it felt lovely.
And no pressure, Tom, to keep delivering the BAFTA award-winning shows.
I think pressure's all on Alex and Greg, to be fair.
So obviously this lineup this year is fantastic. So we've got Daisy May Cooper, we've seen Marwan Rizwan, Johnny Vegas, Richard Herring and Catherine Parkinson. Like to bring in? Would you bring anyone else back? How do you feel about the opportunity now with Channel 4, and is there new routes you might go down with in terms of who you'd like to take on the show with you?
So shall I answer, Tom?
Yeah, and then I can chip in from a Channel 4 perspective. But yeah, you go first, Alex. Yeah,
well, we're aiming as high as ever. We always want to surprise people with the cast. We hate it when people predict it. I don't think anyone ever has, actually. We want it to be a really interesting mix of people. And there are brilliant comedians on Channel 4, but we didn't want it to be a Channel 4 cast. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah, completely agree.
We don't want it to be predictable. But there's, I've always wanted Jack D to do it one day, and I'm hoping he will. And I'm hoping the lure of Channel 4 will persuade people who maybe it is a big commitment. who were reticent before. I'd love to have someone like Sarah Silverman over from America, you know, a huge name, just to see how they would cope in our weird British show. And we've got people lined up over the next coming years, because people have the bigger the person, the busier the schedule often. So yeah, it's always an interesting conversation. It's not, it's never the easiest, because we have a very fixed amount of time where they have to all be free for. So if you're trying to get Ricky Gervais and Sarah Silverman, it's unlikely that they'll all be free for 5 days in March. But it's a really fun challenge as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex's point about it not feeling like just a Channel 4 show or a Channel 4 version or filled with Channel 4 talent is really, really important to us. It's big and broad, and the other thing that is really important, I think, and we're really keen to make use of now that we're lucky enough to have it, is the newer, younger comedians. And I think it's, as Alex said, we try and put someone like Moan in every single series. He's brilliant, and he's, you know, the hope is that people will sit at 9 o'clock on Channel 4 for 10 weeks, and it'll do a brilliant job of raising their profile and building them. But also they're people that we can work with in the future. So I think, you know, the legacy element you spoke of earlier is really exciting to us. I mean, you look back at the list of people that you've had over the years, Alex, and now you think, my God, they're all the biggest names in comedy. But to your point about Romesh, they weren't necessarily the biggest names in comedy when they started. It's just you and your guys have a brilliant record of plucking out people and helping them flourish, and that's incredibly exciting for us.
Yeah. And what's lovely is that the task is such a leveller. It doesn't matter whether you're new on the scene or you've been around for 20 years. They're so brilliantly silly. It's nothing to do with your experience in comedy. It's just they're real levelling tasks. So to that end, do you change the task as you're going through based on how your panel or talent are reacting to tasks? Do you kind of dial things up a bit or dial things down a bit, or is it quite an ad hoc thing, or are they all quite pre-prepared?
Well, each series has around 40 tasks. So the answer to the question is no. We don't change it to reflect the cast at all. It is what it is. So when we had Joe Brown doing it, Frank he said over and over again whilst filming it, I'm 58 or however old he was. So no, we don't try to think about the people. We just think of what is going to be a funny thing to make them do. And it's a case afterwards. We sort of retro engineer the episodes. People often ask us, do we pick the task for the episode to make the points exciting? And that's something we never do. We just try to make an episode standalone interesting. So we have something probably cerebral, something physical, something filmed elsewhere. So no, the tasks are just what they are, and then people do what they do. So it's a very natural show, I think.
Yeah, it comes across that way for sure. So speaking of tasks, I think we should have a look at another task from this series. There's so many to choose from, but we'll play you one now, which I think involves something to do with a frying pan.
More, please.
OK, Mr. Big and Beefy. This task involves a choice. Some eggs, a frying pan and a drastic change of location.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome, thank you.
You right?
Yeah, it's cool, isn't it?
Is it?
Yeah, man.
Why?
It's just vast.
Vast.
Why are you writing that down?
If you say it, I have to write it down.
Croutons.
There's going to be some building. Boxes, pipes, wood, eggs.
Land the most egg in the frying pan.
You may not throw any egg. You must stay on this balcony.
And you may only use the contents of one of these boxes.
You have 20 minutes or until you run out of egg.
Well, that's just crazy. Your time starts now.
Where's the frying pan, Alex?
So, helium canister.
So it's in one of these boxes, is it?
We haven't hidden the frying pan.
OK. OK, where is it then?
Okay, this one's just like cardboard and like bolts and screws.
Do robot eggs travel any easier?
Sorry, robot eggs?
Robot eggs, yeah. If I made them like, if I put a bit more, no blue tack.
Is it under there? No.
You can have a look if you want.
Oh, like a kind of fishing-y sort of thing.
And the most egg in the frying pan. Ah! It's there. It's there. Do you know that?
Yes.
Oh, God.
How are you feeling about this one?
I'm feeling a bit down.
I mean, it doesn't bode well, does it?
No.
Right.
We'll start with Kitty and Ricky. Here
Yes,
we go.
please.
I mean, I'll try box.
Oh, I didn't get to happen. I have to tune in and watch it from
Have to
tomorrow
tune in
night.
Friday, Thursday night, 9 o'clock.
Yeah, Alex, do you find it hard not to laugh or join in or want to kind of suggest things when they're being completely like balmy or missing the point? Do you find it quite hard to stand there quite deadpan?
I find it hard not to laugh. I don't find it hard not to suggest things because I know how it works. I've got a really privileged position of watching all 5 do it in real time. So when the first person comes in, it's very exciting for me because you see someone's reaction to it. And then the story builds up and up. And by the time the 5th person does it, I can see the jigsaw fitting together and how we'll edit it. And I really enjoy my role, just being sneaky and snidey.
I mean, great job. So let's have a chat about the fact that we obviously can't ignore the impact that COVID has had on all TV productions this year. I know this series, Taskmaster, was partly filmed pre-COVID and then some during restrictions and a bit later on as a result. So it must have thrown some huge challenges, at kind of Taskmaster challenge of how you're going to film the show when you can't do what you used to do. So how did you approach that, and kind of which bits did you find easier to solve and which were kind of more of a struggle? That's to both of you.
Yeah, well, I'll do the tasks in the house first of all. We were lucky this series; we filmed 95% of it beforehand. So I think Tom, is there going to be an announcement before saying some of this was filmed before and some after?
Yeah.
You'll see people getting very close together at times. That was obviously before, and most of it was done there. So it wasn't too much of a problem. But going forward, we're back in production very soon, so we are going to have to factor it in. But I think limitations are always help creativity. So I think it's fine. We just have to make sure we're 2 meters apart. We're lucky that we're filmed in isolation anyway. The contestants come one at a time for the most part. But we did do a team day after lockdown with the rules. So you'll see there's a particular task where one team did it before regulations and are very close together and very intimate. And it's one of the funniest things in the series, involving some fruit and Daisy. Whereas the other team do it far apart, but we involve some 2 meter litter pickers to do the same thing. So we just have to adapt around it, and I think it's good that the show reflects what's going on at the moment, but hopefully is a distraction from it rather than hammering it home. And the studio, Tom, do you want to talk about the studio?
Yeah, and the studio was the most challenging bit because obviously that was all filmed after lockdown, but certainly in the middle of over the summer when we were, as we still are, subject to really strict regulations. We're particularly strict and careful about it here at Channel 4, and I'm sure all broadcasters are, but we've got a really strict set of protocols. And it was unusual because the biggest change between the pre-Channel 4 version and the Channel 4 version is obviously we filmed it without a studio audience. We weren't able to have an audience there. And actually, it was watching it from, we were quite nervous about it, quite unsure about how it would feel. But actually watching it from sitting in the Perspex divided gallery, I think it had a really interesting effect on the way people responded to it. And you'll be able to talk more about this, Alex. But actually, it felt to me like some of the contestants, the lack of an audience there was actually not a bad thing because they relaxed and it became, I mean, already it's like the sort of the weirdest family reunion or sort of very odd survivors group, but the elements of that were sort of slightly dialed up and it became a really intimate show. And I think probably a couple of the comics, I mean, Johnny Vegas was talking about it on the radio on Sunday morning, saying actually he felt that he didn't have to play up or be big Johnny Vegas to the audience the way that he normally does in a studio show. So actually you get all of the madness and brilliance and sort of unexpected chaos you get with Johnny, but it's possibly slightly more controlled, a little bit warmer, and I think generally that was the vibe on the floor, wasn't it, Alex?
Completely, yeah. It made it a more level playing field. You weren't overawed by 300 people watching and hoping to laugh. So I think people said things slightly more. The throwaway jokes worked much better this time around because you didn't have to worry about these people. And yeah, often we would waste time really trying to please the people in the room, which is really fun, but most of that stuff didn't make it to the edit. So it's not wasting time, but it was a different sort of show and no worse for it, I'd say. I missed Greg because we were 2 meters apart, and previously he would be sat right here, but it also meant I was out of reach, which is a relief. But even the contestants, they had this distance, but it still felt so intimate because we're all looking at each other. So we're still, yeah, we're not. I think if you're behind desks looking out at this empty auditorium, that might feel very different. But it's going to be interesting going forward. We had a long conversation about whether we would play it to this theatre audience, a cinema audience, to get the laughter reactions. And I think we've made the right choice, but it would have worked without it as well, I would say.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was interesting because we probably debated more about that than anything else. I think whether to put audience on or leave it with the natural audio from the studio. And actually, it was a sort of beautiful, intimate sort of show that we hadn't quite expected, with all the and it doesn't, because obviously 50-60% of it is on tape outside. It didn't feel small at all, but actually, yeah, we tried it by playing the edited show to an audience, and it does work really well, I think, because it's authentic. We're not trying to add on laughs at points where people didn't laugh, or groans at points where people weren't sort of baffled by the bonkersness of someone's attempt. They're all the audio is people's genuine reaction. So actually, it feels really natural, really quickly.
Yeah,
that's great, actually.
The laughter makes it reassuringly the same as before, I think. We just didn't want it to be a stark contrast to pre-COVID. So I'm really pleased with that. And yeah, knowing, as we know, that every sound is authentic is crucial.
Oh, it's amazing. I think a show that's so honest, authentic, funny at its heart, those are the shows that often thrive. And we at Channel 4, we've noticed that we've been able to be agile and creative even with challenges. And I think that's why Taskmaster is such a brilliant fit for the channel, is that you still do what you do best, which is make people laugh and feel good about themselves. You just have to overcome new challenges to get there. So just quickly, during lockdown, obviously you've been home tasking on Twitter and doing the same thing as everybody else. Have you found moving to Channel 4? What's the response been like generally? Have you found lockdown, and do you think you'll take any learnings from that into what you might do for tasks for future series, in terms of everyday struggles and trying to do things that you wouldn't normally do?
Well, we always try to design the tasks around stuff that people have at home. I like it when people can play along. I mean, obviously not everyone has an abandoned factory where you can stack up barrels and a frying pan, but it has, the home tasking thing is something that Channel 4 supported again, that we set these tasks to families at home. And it was a real high point for me. Provide the whole show is hopefully light relief and a distraction from life. And that this was a distraction for both Greg and me during lockdown, because people were so creative at home and coming up with stuff. So we're hoping to do that again. I mean, if the school's shut, we're definitely going to do that again if people want us to. And yeah, this whole Zoom thing like we're doing at the moment, there's advantages to it as well. And there are ways you can harness it for good rather than bad. So I'm hopefully doing a Taskmaster event for a friend's company soon, where there are 300 people on the screen, and I set tasks over an hour, and if you fail, you turn your camera off, so you end up with 2 people competing. And I would never have thought of that without this situation. So I think it's okay to look for some light in the tunnel.
I think light's what we all need at the moment. So I think we have one more clip before we wrap up this morning. Hopefully we've showed everyone's morning up, but let's give them one final reminder of the amazing show Taskmaster that comes to Channel 4 this week.
I want you to know that will result in disqualification.
OK, we're going to start off with Richard and Johnny, the 2 older guys. Here we go.
Daddy bear, Mummy bear.
It's a big daddy.
It is quite big, almost unwieldy. Oh.
Are you all right?
He's not happy with his mum and dad. It looks like Goldilocks came back proper pissed off.
Oh, there's a tray here.
What?
Oh. Is that all the drinks?
That's all the drinks.
I've stopped the clock.
OK, they're all on the table.
Oh. Thank you, Richard. Thanks, Johnny.
That's what life will do to you. Look away, child. Look away.
Right.
Oh, if that isn't just, like I said earlier, the perfect antidote to the times we're living in at the moment. Guys, I'm going to wrap up now. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think it's been a brilliant way to start a Wednesday, get everyone excited. Alex, thank you for creating the show. It's joyous. Tom, thanks for finally bringing it to Channel 4. It's about time. We're delighted to have it. Everyone, just a reminder, Taskmaster is 9 p.m. Thursdays from this week. Tune in, laugh your socks off, and enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Lucy.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.